Episode Lost in the Forest Park. Hello! Is there anyone among the viewers here who is fascinated by hiking in the forest? I strongly believe that there are still many mysterious and unexplainable things hidden within the forest. Today, I would like to take you to listen to a bizarre event that took place in a forest in Nakhon Tamarat province. The entire incident happened when the main character decided to enter the forest alone. On that trip, he ventured into an area of the forest where he had never been before. And of course, that decision almost made him become a ghost guarding the forest. This is the story titled Lost in the Forest Park. Why is it hot? Before we get into our thrilling story, may I kindly ask all viewers to press like and subscribe to support us in telling more spine-chilling tales in the future. For today, I would like to present a haunting tale from Mr. J, a viewer from Nakhon Tamarat, as usual. Mr. J heard this story from an older friend, whom I will refer to by the pseudonym Mr. New. I also ask for permission not to mention the exact location where this story took place. The entire event goes back to about 12 years ago. Mr. J said that his senior friend, New, was very fond of trekking in the forest. Usually, Mr. New had a camping group of about 6 to 7 people who frequently explored forests together. This group had traveled all over the country, both north and south, until one particular forest trip that Mr. New will never forget. It was during the winter season. After finishing his work, for some unknown reason, Mr. New suddenly had the urge to go hiking alone. The forest he chose was within a national park in Nakhon Tamarat province. Coincidentally, none of his friends were available at that time, so he decided to try solo trekking for the first time. At that moment, Mr. New didn't think much of it, because it was a forest he had visited many times. Additionally, whenever he went into the forest, he always wore his revered amulet and a sacred takrud bidden to him by a teacher. Mr. New used his private car and left his house early in the morning. Upon arrival, he parked his car at the National Park office and checked in with familiar staff members, since he and his friends were frequent visitors. After completing the necessary paperwork, he informed the officials that he planned to camp in the forest for about 2 days and 1 night. The officials had no objections. Before proceeding, they checked his belongings according to government regulations. When they asked which trail he planned to take, Mr. New told them he wanted to explore the northern side of the forest, since he had never been there before and had heard that it was lush and ideal for exploration. But the reply from the official was, "Hey, don't go in there, trust me. Nobody ever goes into that part of the forest." Hearing that, Mr. New asked why. Was it because that area was a protected forest? But the officer simply replied, "No, it's not a protected area, but don't go in there, trust me, especially not alone. We strongly advise against it." Since Mr. New had already planned to enter that specific part, he tried negotiating with the officer for a long time. But the officer stood firm and finally said, "Can you promise me that you won't go in that direction?" In the end, Mr. New agreed. He then excused himself to use the bathroom and returned to check his gear. After sorting himself out, he headed into the forest, wondering in his mind why the officer was so strongly against him going into that area. Mr. New walked along the familiar trail that he used to hike with his friends. Everything looked familiar. He stopped at various scenic spots and had lunch. By around 2 p.m., he reached a junction that led to the northern part of the forest. He thought that if he changed direction now, there was still enough time. He could quickly explore and return to the usual forest area to camp before sunset. With that thought, he immediately turned and headed toward the northern forest. He hadn't walked far when he entered dense woodland. The moment he stepped in, he could feel the atmosphere shift. Mr. New said the temperature in that area was oddly cold. The air was very humid. Only a little sunlight managed to pierce through the thick canopy, creating a dim, misty atmosphere. He was thrilled by the forest's atmosphere. The faded old trails made him second-guess every step. Some areas were so overgrown that he had to use a knife to cut through. The deeper he went, the more difficult the terrain became. Trees, large and small, grew densely. The cries of wild animals echoed from all directions, making him unsure where they came from. He clearly noticed how different this forest was. It was so dark that no light reached the ground. The eerie atmosphere made him fearful. His instincts told him that going deeper could lead to danger, or worse, make him prey to something lurking ahead. At that point, he was furious at himself for ignoring the officer's warning. He decided to climb up a large tree nearby. It took a long time, but he eventually managed to get himself onto a branch. He sat there quietly for a while, trying to calm his mind. When he looked down, he could barely believe his eyes. He saw some kind of large animal walking under the tree. All he could see was its plump, black back. He couldn't identify it, but guessed it might be a wild boar based on its size and shape. The creature wandered below the tree for a while. Then, suddenly, it looked up directly at him. And can you believe it? Mr. New said the creature had a human-like face. Its head was like a wild boar, but its face had human features. Dark-skinned, with glowing red eyes that stared at him so intensely he almost had a heart attack. In his mind, he questioned what this thing really was. It was the middle of the day, yet the forest floor was unnaturally dark. No matter where he looked, everything was hazy and unclear. Then suddenly, the cries of many animals erupted all around him, causing his nerves to fray. At the same time, that strange creature below never took its eyes off him. Mr. New thought he wouldn't survive. He didn't know where to run. He clung to the tree and prayed to sacred spirits for help. He closed his eyes for a long time. Eventually, the animal noises faded. When he opened his eyes, the strange creature had vanished, and the forest, which was previously dark, suddenly brightened. He tried to reassure himself that what he saw might have been a hallucination caused by exhaustion. He gathered his thoughts and scanned the ground. Seeing nothing suspicious, he climbed down. The first thing he thought of was getting out of that forest area as quickly as possible. When he checked his watch, it was already nearly 4 p.m., but when he looked closely, he realized the watch had stopped at some unknown time. Luckily, on his way in, he had marked the path frequently, so he tried retracing his steps by looking for the signs he had made. But can you believe it? No matter how hard he looked, he couldn't find a single mark. It was as if he never left any. He began to panic. He walked around the same area, trying to search for the trail he had taken earlier, but all he saw were dense trees and unknown paths. He wandered in circles for a long time. The more he tried to get out, the more he felt like he was being led deeper into the forest. Every direction looked the same. No signs, no markers, no sunlight, just thick trees and the sound of birds and insects echoing eerily. That was the moment Mr. New realized he was truly lost. What made things worse was that it started getting dark very quickly. He looked at the sky, and though the sun hadn't completely set, it was already dark under the canopy. With no choice, he had to find a safe place to spend the night. He found a big tree with a hollow base and decided to make a temporary shelter there. He took out his flashlight, but as soon as he turned it on, it flickered and died. He switched to the backup, which worked, but was dimmer than usual. Luckily, he had some food and water in his backpack, so he sat and ate quietly, calming himself. He didn't know if it was out of fear or the eeriness of the forest, but he lost his appetite.
Around 7 p.m., just as he was preparing to lie down, he began to hear the sound of footsteps. Slow, heavy, and dragging, coming closer. He thought it might be a large animal, maybe a wild boar or something similar. But then he noticed something strange. The sound of the footsteps circled around him, 3 full rounds, without him seeing anything at all. He sat frozen, clutching his knife tightly in one hand and his takrud in the other, silently chanting prayers.
Then came the worst part. He started to hear a woman crying softly in the distance. The crying was faint at first, but gradually grew louder and closer, as if the person was approaching. Mr. New said that was the scariest part of his life. The crying circled around him, just like the footsteps, but he still didn't see anyone. Then suddenly, silence. Complete silence. No sound of insects, no wind, no rustling leaves, nothing. It was like everything had stopped, except for his own heartbeat. Suddenly, he heard a whisper, so close to his ear that he could feel the breath. It said softly, "You shouldn't be here." His heart dropped. He immediately pressed his palms together and begged for forgiveness from the spirits. He promised he wouldn't go deeper or do anything disrespectful. He only wanted to leave safely. Then came a gust of wind, and the forest noises returned instantly. Crickets, frogs, and rustling trees came back like someone had hit a switch. It was already midnight, but he couldn't sleep at all. He just sat still until dawn. As soon as the first light came, he packed his things and started walking aimlessly in the direction he thought was east. After walking for more than 2 hours, just when his energy was almost gone, he suddenly stumbled upon an old trail, one that looked like it had been used in the past but was now overgrown. He followed it for another 30 minutes and finally heard the sound of water. He reached a small stream and drank with relief. He washed his face, then sat to rest for a bit. He began calling out loudly, hoping someone might hear him. After yelling for a while, he heard a reply. It was a park ranger who was out searching for him. The officer said Mr. New had been missing for almost 2 full days. He had already notified his family and mobilized a search team. But Mr. New said, "No way. I was only lost for 1 night." They looked at him strangely and said, "You've been missing for over 36 hours. We were about to send for backup tomorrow." Mr. New couldn't believe it. He remembered clearly he had entered the forest on the first morning, got lost that evening, and then spent just 1 night in the forest. How could this be 2 days? When he returned to the station, he looked at his watch. It had started working again. The time and date were both wrong. Even the battery level went from empty to full. Even stranger, when he told the officers where he had gone, they said, "We told you not to go that way. That part of the forest, no matter who enters, they never come out the same. You're lucky. Some disappear forever. Some are found insane. Some don't even remember their names." Mr. New was so shaken by the whole ordeal that he swore never to enter a forest alone again, especially not that part. And that, my friends, is the strange and haunting story of Lost in the Forest Park. If you ever think of hiking deep into unknown forests, make sure you respect both nature and the unseen world. You never know what might be watching you from the shadows.